They hadn't wanted me there. That truth landed long before the toasts, before the speeches, before the photographer's first flash. I was never part of their picture, just a shadow draped in pearls, meant to smile politely if acknowledged. My invitation had arrived late, not lost, just deliberately delayed. A bland card unsigned with no title, no mother of the groom, only my name plain as a stranger's. I already knew the truth before that envelope appeared. I knew it when Joel stopped replying to my seating chart messages. When Malign told me to rest instead of helping with the menu. When the florist ignored my offer to cover the flowers. Though it was my money that paid for the venue. That sprawling farmhouse with vineyard views existed because I signed the check. I never wanted applause, only to help. 50 years since Henry and I had married. The kind of milestone that should gather family, honor, endurance. But this event wasn't about honoring a marriage. It was about erasing a mother. That morning, I held the midnight blue dress I had saved for, tailored to fit the woman I had become. Silk that shaped itself honestly against me, soft, structured, lived in beauty. My first indulgence in years. I wore it not to look young, but to look true. My neighbor Patty offered to drive me. "It'll be good for you," she said, seeing the nerves I wouldn't admit. I declined. I drove alone, slow, with the windows down. I needed that silence. The lot was full when I arrived. Black SUVs and shining sedans. Cars I had partly paid for over the years with quiet generosity. My little Honda stood apart and I let it. Inside, roses mixed with the heavy scent of catered food. Guests laughed in clusters. I scanned for my children. The ones I had carried, fed, forgiven. I didn't find them. Instead, I was guided outside to the older guests section. A back patio table beside women I'd never met. One adjusting an oxygen tank, the other coughing into lace. We hadn't been seated, we'd been managed. No wine, no hors d'oeuvres. Dinner starts at 7. A server chirped. "You'll be called in." Called in like understudies. I wrapped my shawl tighter and looked at the sky. That's when I knew it wasn't suspicion anymore. It was certainty. They weren't ashamed of what I'd done. They were ashamed of me. My voice, my presence, the way I didn't fit the polished version of family they wanted to sell. They had crafted an image, a brand. I was off-brand. I stood steady and walked back to my car. No rush, no tears, just clarity. I pulled out my phone and called the bank. Calmly, I canceled transfers, booked an appointment with Mr. Kellerman to review account access. In the fading light, the venue glowed, soft jazz spilling into the vineyard. I had built so much in silence. A home, a business, a family. Silence was how they tried to erase me. But I would not be silent anymore. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the dark car, watching the lights of the hall my money had bought. Somewhere inside, Joel was probably raising a glass to family values, while Malign posed for photographers. They wouldn't mention me. And I wasn't angry, not in the usual sense. I was emptied. Years of quiet disappointment had poured out, leaving behind a still, dangerous calm, the kind before a storm. Later, Malign texted, "Hope you're resting. Everything's wonderful. Love you." I didn't answer. Instead, I drove by the bank. I didn't go inside, but I stared at the building Henry and I once passed, promising ourselves one day we'd have our name there. We never did. But we had opened our first account, saving every spare dollar. Henry called it backup dignity. I kept that vow even after he died. I steadied the family, paid off debts, funded law school, moves, quietly, consistently, and over time they forgot. At home, the porch light flickered. I left it inside. The house was still, plain, not lonely. On the counter sat the photo album I had planned to place on the gift table. Memories of Henry, the children, our first home. I put it back in the drawer. The next morning I called the lawyer. Then I called Mr. Kellerman's office. "It's urgent." When Nora phoned later, her voice softened me. Joel's daughter, kind and unguarded. "Grandma, I didn't see you last night. I saved you a seat." That almost broke me, but I stayed firm. "I left early," I said. "Didn't want to intrude." She paused, then asked gently, "Is this about the table?" I smiled despite myself. "It's not just the table, darling. It's all the tables." By Thursday, the silence from Joel and Malign was complete. Only Nora checked in. At 9:25 sharp on Friday, I sat in Mr. Kellerman's office, calm, certain. "I'd like to make changes," I told him. "Remove Joel's access. Cancel the automatic payments to Malign. Start a trust for Nora. He asked if I wanted to notify them first. No, I said simply. Let them feel what I did. Left out of something they thought was theirs. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was recognition. Clarity. Nora would inherit what I had. Not because she was flawless, not because she was kind, but because she saw me. She asked how I was, not what I could give. By the time I left the bank, the papers were in motion. I carried the folder under my arm, lighter than I had felt in years. My next stop was Mr. Dorsey's office. He'd handled Henry's will and had often nudged me toward updating mine. He skimmed my notes, then looked up. This is a big change. You're sure about removing your children? I'm not removing them, I said evenly. I'm just done pretending they'll ever be different than they are. He nodded, as if he understood. Together we revised documents, healthcare proxies, power of attorney, contingency plans if Nora declined. Do you want to leave them anything at all? A token? He asked carefully. I thought about it, then shook my head. They've already had more than their share. When I stepped outside near noon, I realized I hadn't eaten all day. I wasn't hungry. I was alert, like someone watching the storm she always knew would come. At home, the answering machine blinked with 4 messages. I erased them all without listening. My phone buzzed again, Joel, then Malign. I silenced both. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because someone else had noticed I was gone, likely Nora. In the quiet, I made coffee and sat at the dining table. This was the same room that had held birthdays, crises, and holidays. It didn't feel hollow now. It felt cleared out. I opened my laptop and began to write. Not a speech, not a letter, just a record. What I had given. What I had endured. What I had finally let go. There comes a moment when grief at being excluded shifts into strength. The strength of choosing your own circle. That moment is worth everything. That evening I sat on the back porch as the sun slid behind the maples, the sky brushed with orange and violet. My cup had gone cold in my hands, but I held it out of habit. Once, this porch was full of voices, Henry with the grill, Joel under the sprinkler, Melaine clutching her doll. Those summers were like pressed flowers, pretty fragile, already gone. The only sound now was the wind. I should have felt sorrow. Maybe I did. But mostly, I felt awake, more awake than I'd been in years. At 60:42, the doorbell rang. Through the curtain, I saw a familiar figure. Nora, jeans, navy sweater, hair pulled back the way she always wore when serious. She didn't wave. She just waited. I opened the door. Hi, she said softly. Come in, I replied. She hesitated, then set her bag down. I hope it's okay I came. Dad and Aunt Malign keep calling me. I think they finally realized you're not answering. Let them wonder, I said. She sat at the kitchen table, eyes roaming the room like always, searching for echoes of childhood, the candy jar, the scent of lemon cleaner. She had grown up here in fragments. Weekends. Holidays, but she remembered. They think something's wrong, she said. You can tell them I'm not upset, I answered. You're not. No, I'm done. She didn't flinch or offer hollow comfort. She simply nodded. I thought maybe I upset you. When you didn't reply this morning. You did nothing wrong, Nora. You've been the only one who hasn't. We sat in silence, the kind that felt real, not heavy. Then she asked, did something happen at the party? Yes, I said. But not only there. That night just made it obvious. I told her plainly about the late invitation, the seating, the way I was erased, and about what I had done since the will, the accounts, the doors closed. You did all that in 1 week, she asked. It didn't take a week, I said. It took a lifetime. The decision just arrived Thursday. She didn't cheer or gasp. She only said, I'm glad you're doing what feels right. But they'll be furious. I smiled faintly. Let them be. Let them taste what absence feels like. We talked for an hour, not about them, but about her roommate, her job, the man she wasn't sure about, her headaches, her plans. I listened fully. When she left, she hugged me with a grip stronger than I remembered. Or maybe I was just noticing now. Afterward, the house was quiet again. But this time, the silence was mine, not imposed. In the hallway, I passed the gallery wall, family photos frozen in their smiles. I didn't take them down. I wasn't erasing anyone. I was simply done pretending. The next morning I rose early rested, not from exhaustion but from real sleep. I made oatmeal with honey, sat at the window, and watched life move outside, neighbors' delivery vans, Mrs. Patel watering her plants. Normal, but inside, everything was rearranged. The text came. Joel, Mom, please call. This is serious. Malign, I don't know what's happening, but we need to talk today. Joel again, Nora said you're fine. Is that true? Are you okay? I didn't reply, let them feel the space. Instead, I pulled out an old file labeled Family Support. Inside were copies of checks, invoices, messages, years of quiet rescues. Joel's first down payment, 30 zalozen, marked gift, Malign's treatments, rent for her son, bailouts, school fees, even tax payments. The folder was thick, but not a single thank you card. Henry once warned me, if you always catch them, they'll forget gravity exists. He was right. They'd forgotten both gravity and me. I scrawled one word across the folder, Silacid. Later I walked the block. Not to escape, not to stall, just to walk. Just to belong to myself again. That evening Joel's voicemail waited. His voice was tired. Mom, listen. If I did something, I want to fix it. But I can't if you won't talk, please. I want to understand. He didn't sound cruel. He never did. That was always the trap. Malign wielded guilt. Joel wielded calm. Either way, I was the strong one, the dependable one. Until now. I made dinner. Just for me, chicken, rice, green beans. Simple, balanced mine. For once, my table didn't bend under anyone else's preferences. The holidays would come soon. Maybe I'd book a quiet room. Maybe I'd invite Nora for something small. No decorations, no performance. Just conversation. Saturday brought deep silence. And for the first time, I didn't resent it. I didn't wonder what I'd done to be forgotten. I simply made tea barefoot, unbothered by unread texts. I pulled down a small photo box. Inside, decades of snapshots. Henry's notes in faded ink. Joel's kindergarten graduation. Malign in a tutu. A beach trip the summer before Henry died. Photos of laughter so real it still echoed. Those versions of me weren't gone. Just waiting to be noticed again. I lingered on that smile longer than the others. Had he changed, or was it me? Probably both. The doorbell rang around midday. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a heartbeat, I thought about ignoring it, but habit won. I stood, brushed the lint from my skirt, and opened the door. Joel was there. He looked genuinely wary, not performing it. Shirt rumpled, sleeves rolled, coffee in one hand, keys dangling from the other. Hi, Mom. Joel. Can I come in? I didn't answer, but I stepped back. He entered like a stranger, eyes scanning the house as if searching for someone else. No embrace, no warm words. I've been calling, he said. I know. He paused, then sat at the kitchen table. I stayed standing. I don't know where to begin. Start with the truth. He let out a breath. We didn't mean to leave you out. It wasn't planned, but it happened. Yes, I said. It did. He rubbed his forehead. Maddie and I thought maybe you wouldn't enjoy it. The noise, the crowd. You've seemed tired lately. That's not true. No, he admitted quietly. It's what we told ourselves. The air between us thickened. He looked older than his years, but I didn't soften. Not yet. I want to understand, he said. Do you? You're the one shutting me out. That's rich, he muttered. You're the one cutting us off, accounts, payments. Nora said you're changing things. I am. Why? Because I finally realized I've been holding up the wrong people. He blinked. You're angry? No, I said. I'm awake. He stared at me like that was worse. I sat across from him, folding my hands. I gave my life to this family, not only as a mother, but as a crutch, a wallet, a silent rescuer. And you stopped seeing me as human. I became furniture. Useful. But invisible. That's unfair. His voice rose. No, Joel. What's unfair was being seated at the back. What's unfair is expecting me to vanish into the background while still carrying everyone else. He dropped his gaze to the cup. I didn't think. Finally, I said. An honest sentence. He pressed his fingers to his temples. I don't want to lose you. You already did, I said softly. You just noticed when the money stopped. His jaw tightened, and for a moment he looked like the boy he once was, proud, wounded, unsure. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, but sorry isn't a bridge. It's only a door. You can open it, but I don't have to walk through. He nodded slowly. What happens now? No, you go home, and I get a quiet afternoon. He rose, awkward, uncertain. I'm not closing the door forever, I added. But I won't keep it propped open either. He looked at me, really looked, and then left. I closed the door gently. I turned off my phone, brewed tea, and let the sun warm the house. Later, Nora slipped in with her key, the one I'd given her years ago when she was a teenager afraid of being locked out. She found me in the garden, trimming what was left of the dahlias. I handed her the shears. Your dad came. She nodded. He told me. We worked in silence, cutting back wilted stalks, filling a basket with fading blooms still clinging to color. Did he say anything worth hearing? I asked. He said you were rewriting the story. I laughed dryly. No, I'm finally telling the truth. Nora didn't smile. She just said, he doesn't know how to face this version of you, the one who doesn't swallow everything. Good, I said. Then maybe he'll start learning. Back inside, she made tea without asking, setting things out the way she remembered. Then she pulled a folded note from her bag. It's from Malign, she said. She wrote it after Dad told her about the payments. Asked me to give it to you. I didn't reach for it. I don't need her words. Not filtered through you. Nora set it down but didn't push it closer. I read it. I shouldn't have, but I did. It's mostly shock. She says she thought distance was respecting your space, that she didn't realize how much she'd taken for granted. I sipped my tea. She says she wants to fix it. Nora added quietly. They always do, I said. After it's broken. She says she loves you. I looked at Nora. Do you think she does? Nora hesitated. I think she loves the idea of you, the role, not the person. I smiled faintly. You're wise. No, she said. I've just been watching for a long time. We sat together in the kind of silence that doesn't ache, just presence. After a while, I told her, I've made you the trustee, the house, the accounts. One day all of it. Her eyes widened. What? I didn't do it to buy love. You already gave that freely. I did it because you're the only one who never made me earn a seat at my own table. She whispered. I don't know what to say. You don't have to. She nodded, eyes shining. Thank you. Use it well, I said. Not just the money. The trust. I will, she promised, and I believed her. That night I moved through the house switching off lights one by one. Not for appearances. Not for anyone else. Just closing the day with care. I paused by Henry's photo. You'd like her, I whispered. Then I touched the glass and went to bed, heart not heavy, but finally entirely mine. She gave without asking what it cost. Her jaw tightened, though her voice stayed calm. That's not fair. I raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? You were always strong. You handled things. You never said no. I never said no because I didn't know I could. I cut in. She lowered her eyes. I showed up, Maddie, again and again. And in return, you put me somewhere I wouldn't ruin the view. That's not true, she snapped, cracking at last. You were difficult to include. You didn't fit. There it was, not shouted, just dropped like a pebble in still water. I nodded. Thank you. For what? For finally saying it. She opened her mouth, closed it again. You don't need to explain, I said softly. I'm not angry. But I'm not available anymore. She flinched. What does that mean? It means I'm done paying and vanishing. I won't be written into holidays with invisible ink anymore. She stared, stunned. So, you're cutting us off? I'm setting myself free. Her voice dropped to something younger, almost childlike. Are we still family? We always will be. But now you'll have to find your way to me. I'm not chasing anyone anymore. She left quietly. I didn't cry. I washed 2 cups, hers untouched, and later, I pulled out old albums. I didn't burn them. I simply rearranged, setting aside pictures of me alone. Proof that I'd always existed, even unseen. I labeled the new album Still Here. Days passed in silence, no calls, no texts, not even from the ones circling them. For once, I didn't fold. I called Nora instead. She came without hesitation. We drank tea as I handed her a notebook of instructions. What to do when I'm gone. Not because I'm ill, but because I'm finally planning for myself. It's not about money, I told her. It's about who's still here when the money stops. Later, I shredded the invoice for the reunion I paid for, 38,700. Proof was no longer necessary. I knew what I had done and what they hadn't. When the venue called about legal confusion, I calmly clarified I paid for everything. If my children wanted to dispute it, they could do so with my lawyer. For once, the truth stood on its own. By then, my life had shifted. Mornings with coffee, news without interruption, calls to old friends, freedom in small rituals. An invitation arrived at another, family celebration, this time with a seat waiting for me. I went not out of hope, but closure. They offered speeches, gifts, a framed photo of the family smiling, without me in it. "Thank you," I said evenly. "But this isn't my picture." I stood. "You wanted the mother who gave everything quietly. That's over. I came here to see it clearly one last time, and I have. I'm going home." I walked out into the night air. It felt like truth, crisp and freeing. The next morning, stillness wrapped the house. I drank my coffee slowly. No replaying of words, no regrets. Clarity itself was the gift. When Joel's voicemail came, realizing too late that I wasn't waiting anymore, I deleted it without pause. I hadn't been waiting for them. I'd been waiting for myself. Nora came later with groceries, soup simmering on the stove. No questions, no pity, just quiet belonging. Then she asked, "Want to do something wild? Just a weekend away. Trees, stars, a porch swing. No family, no phones." I smiled. "I'd only want to do that with you." That night, I pulled out my old suitcase. Carefully folded sweaters, socks, a book, and the pearl earrings Henry once gave me. Not because I needed them, but because I finally remembered I loved how they caught the light. The cabin was small, just 2 rooms and a porch with a fire that seemed to speak on its own. We arrived late Friday as the sun slipped behind the hills. Nora drove with the windows open, music soft and no hurry in her hands. I hadn't left town for anything but funerals in years. We unpacked without many words, the kind of silence that feels familiar, not strained. She took the little bed. I chose the room that looked out on the trees, branches bare in places, stubborn leaves clinging in others. Life in every stage, side by side. That night, we sipped tea wrapped in blankets, listening to owls and the hush of wind. I don't recall the words we shared, because the point was that they weren't urgent. Eventually, she said, "I think you startled them." "Good," I replied. "They thought you were fragile," she whispered. "No," I said. "They hoped I was." Later, by the fire, we played cards. She cheated. I laughed harder than I had in months. By the second morning, I felt something stir. The part of me I'd buried, the one that liked quiet air and claimed space without asking. We walked a trail, picked up a red leaf, veins like rivers. She tucked it in my pocket. "Press it," I promised I would. Halfway up on a bench, I said softly, "I'm not going back." "To what? To who?" she asked. I admitted. "You already didn't," she answered, squeezing my hand. Back at the cabin, Joel's message flashed on her phone. "Mom won't answer. We're worried." She showed me. I smiled. "Tell him I'm exactly where I want to be." She didn't reply. That night, she made pasta, I washed dishes, and we read by the fire. I watched the flames more than the pages. "I used to dream of vanishing," I said. "Not from the world, but from the version of me they created. And now, I'm not gone. I'm finally visible to myself." She rested her head on my shoulder, and I let it stay. That night, I wrote they erased me with politeness. I remembered myself with silence, not for revenge, but so I'd never forget. When we returned Sunday, the house wasn't the same. I wasn't back from a trip. I was arriving new. Nora kissed my cheek at the porch. "If they show up," she asked, "they'll find the door locked." Not in anger. In principle. Inside, I pressed the red leaf into Henry's old book. It crackled softly, a sound of keeping, not losing. By Monday, their messages changed tone. "Please," confusion, Joel insisting I was making a mistake. But the mistake would have been pretending. That night I burned their polite letters. Empty thank yous. Holiday notes written out of duty. I didn't burn them in rage, but to watch them lift away in peace. The next day, I wrote to myself, "You were never just support. You were a full woman. You forgot, but now you remember." I sealed it in an envelope labeled, "Read if you ever doubt." When Joel's lawyer wrote about decisions made under distress, I sent it on to my attorney. "Respond firmly," I said. "Make clear this isn't confusion. It's correction." By October's end, the noise stopped. No more letters, no more midnight calls. The silence was mine now. I woke each morning, curtains open, light filling the kitchen, same walls, same rug, but everything brighter because I was no longer waiting. Nora began dropping by with bread or coffee. Sometimes we talked, sometimes not. Both felt right. "You're lighter," she said once. "I stopped carrying what wasn't mine," I answered. Papers were in order. Trusts, will, everything clear. They'd find no loopholes, no pity. Only the knowledge that I had once loved them and had chosen differently now. Memories still surfaced. Joel as a baby on Henry's chest, Malene's little hand learning letters. But they no longer trapped me. They floated. One evening, I spoke aloud to Henry's picture. "You were right. Dignity and reserve." And I laughed, finally understanding. Nora and I began planning our next trip, this time to the coast, somewhere with salt in the air. The future no longer felt like duty. It felt like a porch swing I'd chosen myself. That night, I wrote my last line in the notebook, "Dignity, reclaimed as a fortune kept." I wasn't a discarded matriarch. I wasn't a ghost in pearls. I was a woman who remembered herself and acted. The story I'd leave wasn't about what I gave. It was about what I took back. And for any woman sitting at a table she paid for but wasn't invited to, know this: you are allowed to rise. You are allowed to reclaim your time, your worth, your place. It isn't vengeance. It isn't anger. It's remembering. And remembering is freedom.